Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Jet Foundation's community webinar series. We're going to wait a few seconds here and allow all the other attendees to join on, and we'll start right back up. All right, looks like we've got a good crowd all signed up now and on. All right, thanks again, everyone, for joining Jet Foundation's community webinar workshop series. My name is Danielle Edwards. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Jet Foundation. This year, our webinar series is to help our Duchenne community feel better prepared. While I wish we could be doing this in person at our traditional family workshops, I'm so glad we're able to provide you with these virtual educational webinars instead. Today, we are so excited to have Astellas with us, who will be presenting on an overview of their drug development program to our Duchenne community. Please make sure to drop any questions you may have into the chat section below so we can make sure they're answered after the presentation. With that being said, I hope everyone enjoys the webinar today, and I'll pass it over to Gerald to begin.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Jet Foundation for this opportunity to speak to you. And we're going to be giving an update of ASP0367 for the treatment of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And again, my name is Gerard Merrick, and I'm at Astellas Pharma Global Development. And first, I just have a few disclosures. ASP0367 was previously known as MA0211. It was developed by Mitobridge, which was acquired by Astellas back in 2017. And ASP0367 is an investigational drug, and it's not for use outside of these investigations. And the safety and efficacy of ASP0367 has not been established. And there's no guarantee that this drug will receive regulatory approval or become commercially available for uses being investigated. And ASP0367 is not authorized for sale in any jurisdiction. And for the overview of my talk, I'm first going to talk a little bit about mitochondria, which are important parts of muscle cells, and actually important parts of every cell in the body. Mitochondria make energy that your cells need to survive and do work. ASP0367 is an oral investigational drug. ASP0367 may act inside the muscle cells to increase the mitochondria's ability to make energy for the cells. And we'll talk about how that relates to Duchenne muscular dystrophy. A phase 1b clinical trial has open sites in the United States, in Sacramento, Kansas City, Worcester, Norfolk, and also in Richmond. There we go, thank you. So first I'll just say a little bit about Astellas. So our corporate vision is to be on the forefront of healthcare change to turn innovative science into value for patients. Astellas was formed back in 2005 from a merger of two Japanese pharmaceutical companies, Yamanouchi and Fujisawa, and is headquartered in Tokyo, Japan, with locations worldwide. There's a growing expertise in emerging areas of discovery research that includes regenerative medicines, muscle diseases, and neuroscience, and a conscious company shift to a focus area approach. We take a science-first approach, focusing on the best science, trying to empower the best talent to pursue it, and then develop it in the best locations. We have a broad pipeline, primarily focused in areas of oncology, urology, nephrology, and immunology, where there's high unmet need. In terms of by the numbers, Astellas is the top 25 global pharmaceutical company with more than almost 17,000 employees worldwide, with over 2,000 working in M&D. Many of these in the Chicagoland area in Northbrook, Illinois. We have a revenue of just a little bit under 12 billion globally, and we have a commitment of R&D investing at least trying to invest 16 to up to 18% of sales revenue into research, which is basically a little bit under 1.9 billion reinvested in R&D. So now I just want to say a little bit about mitochondria. And these pictures at the top show muscle cells and with mitochondria inside the muscle cells. And the picture on the right side shows actually a sort of a high-powered electron microscopic view of what mitochondria look like. So mitochondria are, as you can tell, then very small parts of your cells that do a very specific job. They turn the food that you eat into energy that your cells need to survive and also do the work they normally perform. And there are special pathways that regulate how active the mitochondria are, how they use sugars and fatty acids. Those are the smaller sources of food broken down that provide the energy, and how many of the mitochondria there are. Now, you all know about dystrophin, which is a protein inside your muscles that works with other proteins to keep your muscles strong and protect them from energy. And I'm sure many of you already know that when your muscles don't have enough dystrophin, your muscles get damaged by calcium leaking inside them. This also weakens the mitochondria. So essentially what we're trying to do is to actually intervene in a process downstream of dystrophin itself. Damaged mitochondria can't use fatty acids properly. And when this happens, your muscles get tired easily. They can't repair the injuries from them, and then your muscles get sore. So basically for ASP0367, we're investigating this to determine whether it can turn on the PPAR delta pathways. These PPAR delta pathways regulate mitochondria by turning on different cells, different genes in the cell. And when this pathway is on, the mitochondria is using fatty acids more often, and more mitochondria are made. So using more fatty acids for energy results in increased energy production. So essentially, we're trying to help fix some of these deficits in Duchenne muscular dystrophy by improving cellular energetics, the energy that your muscle cells have to survive and do work. So the study I'm going to talk to you about is one to assess the safety, tolerability, and preliminary efficacy of ASP0367 in pediatric male participants with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And the clinicaltrials.gov number is NCT 04184882. So I'm going to be talking to you about a phase 1 clinical trial. This is a phase, and this is a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. We've already looked at healthy adults, and now we're looking at both safety, tolerability, and preliminary efficacy in boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The primary purpose is to evaluate the safety and tolerability of the drug, as I mentioned. The study will also evaluate how the body processes the drug and how the drug affects function, namely through an arm cycling test that I'll describe to you later. And trial sites are opening now across the United States. And to find a participating site near you, you can visit www.clinicaltrials.gov and search NCT 041882. So this is a schematic of actually our study. As I mentioned, it's double-blind, placebo-controlled in the first portion. And this means that after the 4-week screening period to determine if you're eligible for the study, you're randomized, sort of like a coin flip, into either active ASP0367 or placebo. The difference between just simply a coin flip here is, though, that you have roughly a 2/3 chance of being assigned to active drug treatment and only a 1/3 chance of being assigned to placebo. After the end of this 12-week period, then you'll be actually going, everyone will be assigned to active open label ASP0367. That way, people who are not able, are on placebo in the initial double-blind portion will have an opportunity to be on active drug for at least 3 months. And for both phases, there's a 2-week low dose period followed by a 10-week high dose period. And we also are assessing some effects of food in there just to confirm effects, lack of effects that we saw in the healthy adult study. And then finally, this is followed by a 4-week follow-up period as well. So all together, this involves about an 8-month duration of involvement in the study. Although if you could, the last portion, the open label portion, is not something that you're required to do. So just want to make people understand that part of it. And there are a number of visits throughout the study, but we've done a number of things to actually deal with the COVID situation. So we've made a number of mitigations for the coronavirus risk. These including, we've included a number of home healthcare visits. These are study sites that are collecting largely safety laboratory measures and then pharmacodynamic measures that can be formed in the subject's home, and roughly about 50% of these visits. And for these, a nurse would visit your home to do the study test. And these nurses are very well trained to understand the importance of doing this in a safe manner so that your family is not exposed at an increased risk of exposure from the coronavirus. In addition, your study doctor will ask about your family's work and travel histories, assess your recent or potential ongoing heightened risk of exposure to coronavirus. And there have been eligibility criteria added to exclude people who have signs and symptoms of coronavirus and patients or caregivers who are at higher risk for exposure due to recent travel, certain types of work, or having been near infected people with coronavirus, unless the parents or caregivers have received the COVID-19 vaccines. So, who can participate? Boys ages 8 through 16 having a diagnosis of DMD, taking stable dose of corticosteroids and any cardiac therapy that you're on, having at least some trouble walking quickly as assessed by a 10-meter walk test in the first screening visit, and you can move your arms up to at least the shoulder height. Exclusions including acute illness recently or serious infections, mental health conditions, or behavioral problems are not healthy enough for the study. Having heart problems, such as ejection fraction less than 55%, meaning that your heart isn't pumping blood well, electrical problems of the heart, or having high levels of cardiac troponin on lab tests. That's essentially a muscle enzyme. Also, if you've used certain types of drugs within the last 4 weeks of the study, that's also exclusion. Having kidney or liver problems, or currently receiving an investigational drug. And you can find more about these inclusion and exclusion criteria on clinicaltrials.gov. And what happens at the study visits? Your general health will be determined by exams that your study doctor does at visits, blood and urine test. Heart tests will be done, both ECG and an echocardiogram. Breathing tests will be done, pulmonary function test, and we'll be assessing how you move your body. Tests in the clinic, such as a cycling test, I'll describe in a little bit, the performance of the upper limb test, 2-minute walk test, and other tests at home, namely video test and activity monitoring. We'll also be looking at how your body uses the drug. This is blood and urine test for the levels of the drug in these fluids. How do you think and feel also is being tested, different surveys, diaries, and interviews, as well as also a digit span memory test and others. And then finally, your muscle structure. So about half the sites will be looking at magnetic resonance spectroscopy, or MRI, to look at muscle function and structure as well. And then I told you we have a somewhat novel test. Unfortunately, in terms of for those who are in the non-ambulatory stage, there probably aren't as many tests that are really assessing function in this period. So one of the positive features of this study that you'll be contributing to as well is helping us understand how to use the assisted 6-minute cycling test. This assisted 6-minute cycling test measures a person's endurance, much like the 6-minute walk test. And it's an outcome measure used for people with DMD who are likely to stop walking soon, or who already require a wheelchair or power chair. To do the test, the person cranks the handles of a tabletop mobile trainer for 6 minutes, and the mobile trainer gives some assistance to the handles to make it easy to turn. And this study will count the number of times that the person cranks their handles with their arms in 6 minutes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at muscle magnetic spectroscopy. So how MRS works. MRS is really like MRI. It's using the same machine, and it's using magnets to take pictures inside the body. And MRS and MRI are non-invasive imaging technology that have been used to study different organs, such as the muscles or the brain. The person lies down on a rolling table, which goes into the machine. They lie still, and the machine uses magnets to create the images. So as I mentioned, it's non-invasive. You're not getting any kind of a radioactive compound for this. In this study, the MRS will be used to obtain images of the muscles in the arms, in the legs, actually, in this case. The amount of fat versus healthy muscle will be measured, which is called the fat fraction. This will allow us to follow how the disease progresses without doing surgery or having to do a biopsy. We will be using MRS to see if ASP0367 might slow down how fast fat replaces muscle because of normal DMD progression. So how can you learn more? You can visit www.clinicaltrials.gov and search for NCT 04184882 for more details about this study, and to see a list of locations recruiting participants. And sites will be added once they're ready to accept new participants. Currently, we have about half the sites activated right now. You can also email Astellas Pharma Global Development at astellas. registration@astellas.com, or you can call 800-888-7704. And thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. That was fantastic. All right. If there are any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat section below. We do have one right now. Given that DMD patients tend to have a variety of behavioral and mental health challenges, why is that an excluding factor?
Well, it's an excluding factor only if, in the judgment of the investigator, those problems really make their participation in the study not possible. So it's not something that we're completely excluding, and that's something that the investigator themselves will use their clinical judgment on.
Okay, great. When do you guys plan to start enrolling again, recruitment?
We've actually already started enrolling, and not all the sites have been activated yet. Roughly about half the sites have been activated. We have another 2 more that we'll be adding in this month, and the others will be following on soon after that. And you can follow new sites as they're added by checking the www.clinicaltrials.gov and searching either the number that the clinical trial identifier I gave you, or you can actually use ASP0367 as well.
Are they allowed to, what is that word? Allowed to screen at one site and then be transferred to another later on?
That's not something that we actually have built into the study currently. So we would not be able to do that right now.
Where are your site locations?
Well, as I mentioned, we have site locations that are located, a couple in Virginia, a little bit outside of Boston and Worcester. We also have one in Kansas City, Kansas, and we're located in Sacramento as well. We'll soon have one up in Minneapolis, and we expect to be having one opening up in Los Angeles soon, as well as hopefully soon in the Baltimore region. So we have a number that are going to be opening up within and then a little bit later we'll be having one down in Florida as well. But that one is a little bit further behind in terms of the activation processes.
Okay, great. Can the arm exerciser be adjusted to the reach of the person, as in at a lower angle or table height?
Well, what we do is make adjustments with the chair and stuff. We have to standardize how the test is monitored, and we have physical therapists that have been trained to make those correct adjustments so that each participant is at a reasonable angle for them. Yeah. And then it'll be done consistently that way for them throughout the trial.
Okay. Is there any preclinical trial information available, i.e. animal studies?
Well, we're actually are in the process right now of, we've actually presented preclinical information at different meetings in the past. So you might be able to find certain presentations available. We are going to be actually publishing some preclinical data that's supporting an ongoing trial, and that's going to be starting up soon, looking at primary mitochondria myopathy. That sort of addresses how this compound improves muscle function. So it improves muscle function in a wide range of paradigms, including improving the function of cells, whether or not you have a particular primary mitochondrial myopathy, or cells from that are derived from patients with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So there's a range of both cellular studies as well as in vivo studies. We've looked in vivo studies in terms of overall muscle function and endurance, in terms of mice with, in terms of the DMX model that everyone uses. We've also looked at cardiac function with these mutant mice as well. So there is a whole range of studies that we have conducted, and that will be coming out soon. And in fact, right now, we have a manuscript that we've submitted for the phase 1 results and healthy adults with this compound as well. So we're in the process of publishing those results right now as we move along.
Okay, great. Will the company help to travel for pre-screening?
We do have some help with that. One of the things, though, that we have done, just because of we had sort of an abrupt stop in our study when the COVID crisis came up. So as a result, we thought it was sort of prudent at that time not to be encouraging people to be traveling by public transportation, whether that be air, train, et cetera. But we do have some help if people are driving in from some distance, and if they need to stay overnight at a hotel, or need help with parking near the site and everything. So we do have help for things like that. So we actually have a consent that we ask people to sign before they are even seen by the site and actually go visit the site, so that they have an ability to partake in that aid for the transportation. Yes.
And then if they were accepted into the trial, is all that travel as well covered again?
Yes. Yes.
Food, gas, travel reimbursements, everything, correct?
I can't speak to all the details, but I believe pretty much so, yes.
All right. This trial is open to all mutations?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the things, while we're excited about this compound, is that it's not something that's dependent upon having only a single mutation. And we think if this compound is effective, we think there's a high likelihood that it would be effective regardless of the mutation that one has. So not only do we envision down the road it being useful adding on to those that are already on stable corticosteroids, for those that are on stable treatments with exon skipping treatments, we think that'll be effective as well. And we're actually adding that onto the trial. Originally, we were excluding people on exon skipping treatments, but we have a protocol amendment that's being approved by the IRBs currently to add that on. And down the road, we envision this being something that will be active in the mitochondria of all cells, that's sort of downstream of dystrophin. So it'll be something that could be potentially theoretically added on to any genetic therapy that's being developed as well.
Okay.
And the other part that I should mention is that we are going to be testing down the road that it improves the function of both skeletal muscles, muscles in your limbs, help you move about, as well as your cardiac muscles that are involved in pumping blood throughout your body. Not all treatments necessarily may be able to work on both of those realms.
Okay. So I guess that to answer the next question, if on Exondys 51 are we able to enroll? So that's kind of coming up in the pipeline. If someone is on approved treatment, they could.
Right. And it'd be we're going to be asking for stable treatment on exon skipping therapies. and which would require 6 months treatment on those.
Okay.
The other part, though, if you're on any actual gene therapy trial, then we wouldn't be able to come into this study, however, unfortunately.
Okay. What is the lowest dose of steroids someone could take to participate in this study?
We actually haven't specified a particular low dose. So what we're asking for is that the patients are on a stable dose. And that also includes not necessarily taking a given dose every day. If you're on a treatment regimen where you're taking the steroids on the weekends, that's something compatible with this study as well.
Okay, great. All right. Again, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. But I think these were some really great questions that were asked and answered. Again, I think it's really interesting as well that this isn't a mutation, or it's open to all mutations. I think, again, for families that are interested in these type of trials, kind of different from our exon skipping ones, like you do have some more flexibility here. And this might be another option that you and your family could look at and kind of take this information. This recording will be available on our website. You can bring this back to your doctor. You can rewatch this and then reach out to the company for any more questions that you may have regarding their trial in the space. But I don't think we have any other questions coming in right now. Gerard, thank you so much for your presentation, and Astellas, so much for your commitment to the Duchenne community. I look forward to seeing you guys more in the space, and wish you the best with your trial. So,
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to reach out to the company, or you can reach out to Jeff Foundation, and we can provide you with the right contact information. Again, we hope that you join us again at another webinar series in the next few weeks. These are really, important to us to hold for the community. We think there's a ton of information, and make sure to follow these companies. A lot have their own websites. Sign up for their newsletter. Check out their Facebook pages, things like that. They're all kind of around now. So just to make sure to stay informed, knowledge is power, I think, in the rare disease space. So thank you again, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you very soon. Thanks again, Gerard. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Bye.